Hello and welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm gonna show you a short video which I took the other day, and it demonstrates the implementation I did for the motors and a touch sensor. And I already added a new requirement in the Git repository, and it's about turning off the motors while the touch sensor is pressed. So in this video, I'm gonna play it now. What you see is the base installation, which I did on a video separately. And the base installation has two motors and a touch sensor in front. So as soon as the program starts running, the motors are initiated and they start working. And with pressing the touch sensor, the motors stop and the application stop execution. So this is basically the video I wanted to show you. Now take a look at the code. One of the most important things in any software engineering, in any software programming courses you will hear about are design patterns. Design patterns are basically something like the most common problems and solutions for them. So design patterns introduce a solution for most common problems in the software architecture and software programming. So what I'm using now is a listener design pattern to be able to control the motors via a listener. So a motor handle class has a field, which in this field I can store a listener. This listener has an implementation, and this implementation is on fetch sample touch sensor method. When I'm calling this method, something should be taken care of, and then after that I shut down the service which is running the motors. So let's take a look at the interface. The interface of the listener suggests us to implement this method. So when I go to the app, you see that I'm adding a new instance of the touch sensor listener, and this new instance is having a method. So this type of implementation is sort of, you can also extract this part outside, but we are doing an anonymous implementation for this specific class interface. So I'm implementing this interface as an anonymous class here, and the implementation holds a touch sensor and also a recommended method to implement. So I'm overriding the method inside the interface with the following implementation, and I'm adding it, storing it in my motor handler. So as you see, there is no other changes in the old implementation, so my handle method stays the same. I'm giving two big motors with the port B and A with the speed 500, and also I'm logging the information during the execution using the logger. And as you see, the result, as I showed you in video, is motor start running, and as soon as I press the button on the touch sensor, the execution will be stopped, because I'm sampling the information on the touch sensor, and as soon as the sample changes from the 0, which means no touching, to the touch, some other result, no matter what. It can be any value in the sample array. In the first index, I'm checking always the first index of the sample value, and as soon as the first index value in the sample array changes, I'm stopping checking the sensor, and as a result, as you see, our thread that which is executed along the main application will be shut down, and the motor gonna be stopped automatically. So this is the whole thing about what we need to do about the listener implementation. There are much more to know. You can also implement listeners in a way that each time you get an event from somewhere else, as a result, you can call a specific listener or a list of the listeners and update the behavior of the program. So this is for now, and I wanted also to show you something other than that about how to connect the Lechus, how to put the application on the Lechus. So as we continue, I'm gonna show you and demonstrate you some stuff about how to work with Lechus. I had to change some stuff to be able to generate the app executable jar file, and the result was something some difficulties to combine the Lechus and the logger in the Maven dependencies. So instead of using Lechus project, as I told you in earlier videos, in that if you want to start programming with Lechus, you go here and you take the other, and then you choose the Lechus project. Basically, choosing the Lechus project was initially for the reason to add the library. But since I had some problem to generating this app jar file, I started to think about some other solutions. So I added the Lechus project. So I started a simple Java project, and my simple Java project was like a very standard way to generate a Java project. So I generated a Java project, and then I added the Maven feature to the Java project, and then explicitly added the extra jar file user libraries to the project. So basically, it's also not a very complicated thing. I'm gonna show you how to do this. So basically, when you come to the libraries, there are a bunch of libraries which are added automatically, like JUnit, Maven dependency, and GRE system libraries. But whenever you want to add a new library, click on the library, and if it's the specific file that you cannot find in the Maven or whatever, you can use the user libraries and then create a new user library, and then add the jar file into this library and select it. And then when you select this library, it's gonna be added to your project. So there is also, to be able to carry on this specific library you are using here, you can also add a folder to your project and put those jar file inside the project and push it to the repository. So whenever your other colleague or other friend want to use it, they can simply import the files from the project itself, because the files are there and they have the same version as you. So you're not gonna face problems which sometimes occur when you're using different version of the libraries. So for that part, let's start talk about how connect to the Lechus. There is a bunch of applications installed when you add the Lechus plugin to the Eclipse IDE. One of them is this application. This application is a very useful application if you're not familiar with the command lines and using the PuTTY to connect to the devices. So let me show you how it works. It's pretty simple and intuitive, so it's not very complicated. So you just put the name, or even you can leave this field empty. At the moment there is no device connected, so let me connect my device to the system. So the device is connected to the system, and we can now search for the the result should be short. Let's see. Okay, so the program starts searching the computer for the brick, and as you see, it found the EV3 with this address, IP address, and it's disconnected. So you can simply click on connect, and voila, you see the application, the program here, and the output of the program also. And you can simply drag and drop the application that you export in the Eclipse to the device and run it. So when you select the application and click on the run, the program gonna be executed on the brick. So this is one of the embedded tools inside the IDE that you can use to upload your program into the brick and test it on the brick. And also when there is some problem, like, I don't know, infinite loop or something, you can stop the program also here, or even shut down the brick. This tool is not perfect, but it's very useful if you are not familiar with the concept of using terminal to connect to the devices, and if you're not used to use the command line, and especially Linux command line to execute something on the Linux. I also wanted to show you how to export your application. When you're done with testing, program your stuff, and you test it, you know that the test is green, everything's fine. You want to test the program on the brick, so you need to export your program. But before that, you need to go to the run as and then run configurations. And in the run configurations, you're gonna see Java application. And then probably for you here is nothing. So you need to configure your Java application, and for that you need to check in your project and the class that the main application is inside. And then you need to also be sure that you're using the corresponding JDK for your project, and also the classes are there that to be exported along with the GRE runnable file. And I think that's all. You don't need to specify something else. So you just need to apply those changes and don't hit the run. We don't want to run this application. We want to execute it as a executable jar file. So you come to after the configuration is done, you come to the export and then click on the runnable jar file. And as a result, you see the configuration you did will appear here. You choose your configuration and also specify the path that the jar file need to be stored in, and leave it in the default selected mode, and then click on the finish. Probably gonna have something like you don't want to override. Yeah, that's no problem. And also sometimes you're gonna see sort of libraries are not I'll check the license, because if you're using different frameworks, each framework can use the different licensing. This message had nothing to do with the license. It just says that there are some duplications. This is also not a problem, but the most the important thing in the Java or any project, basically, you're using a different frameworks, and each frameworks can have different license. The license are important because some of the licenses are not compatible with each other. So you are using some GPL license, or I don't know, Mozilla license or whatever, and in some areas they're not compatible with each other, and you cannot publish your application using both those frameworks in your application, and they're based on the legal issues. So be careful. Sometimes this thing's gonna be problematic, especially when you're programming for the industry. And yeah, and most of these problems are causing you trouble in the real life, probably. So be aware of the licenses and check the licenses when you want to compile your program. And as I showed you, yeah, this is how you can extract your executable jar file. And then simply using this application embedded inside the IDE, you can upload your application. But the other way that you can use to connect is that using the terminal. There is an application called PuTTY that you can use to connect to the brick. You just simply connect the brick via cable or Wi-Fi to the network, and you will get the IP address for the brick. So the thing that you need to do is simply be sure that on your computer there is a SSH commenter installed. We accept the signature. Okay, now we just need to give the username and password. We can use the default set it to user and password on the Lechos image that there is basically Linux distribution which is optimized by Lechos. So as you see, we are now logged into our brick via console, and we are accessing the operation system, which is basically a Linux, and we can execute the commands directly into the brick. So let's see what are the processes running on the machine. So there is a list of the processes running on the machine, and you can see there is a Java running on the machine and under this process number, and there are lots of different commands or Linux commands that you can use to access, manipulate, copy, paste, or whatever. They're using directly the command line, and this is basically your remote to the machine. So imagine you have a computer, and this computer has a you want to access this computer via remote. So PuTTY is the remote program that you can use to access the console. And if you're familiar with the command line and using Linux commands, it's a perfect way to deal with the different stuff. Basically, if you're running a program and the program stuck into something and doesn't respond, you can simply reboot your machine here. So it's easy to do. So everything is here. It's nice and easy now. So this is all for this video, and thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to share the video with the people that you think might be interested in, and also leave a comment below in the comment section if you have any question or any recommendation for these videos. And thanks for watching.